What up, naughty steppers? It's Connor Whitmore here again with another review for you on the Nawtystep channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the new album from Excision, released on Rottun Recordings, Apex. Jeff Abel, also known as Excision, is a Canadian producer hailing from Kelowna, British Columbia. Self-proclaimed half human, half robot, half dinosaur, he is one of the undoubted dubstep legends of the last decade, with a gargantuan discography stretching over that period, including 3 albums before Apex, and releases for labels such as Never Say Die and Mousetrap. Head of his own label, Rottun Recordings, as well as Destroid Music, home to the dubstep supergroup Destroid, comprised of Abel, Downlink and KJ Sorka. Founder also of the dino-themed festival Lost Lands, going strong for its second year in 2018. I mean, he isn't regarded as the father of dubstep for nothing. Back with his first album in 2 years, following October 2016's Virus, an LP stacked with genre-defining hits that places up there with the most impactful and iconic bass releases of the last few years, but which, in spite of its wealth of memorable tunes, I didn't find myself enjoying as much as its predecessor, Codename X. A collection of songs which, for me, sticks up more simply because of how compact it is comparatively, coming in at 11 tracks as opposed to 16, with a similar amount of big hits between them, but Codename X possessing a little more refinement and structural experimentation than Virus, which is more watered down. So I was interested coming into this latest album from Abel, his fourth, as to just how tight and compact it would be in light of his previous projects. Especially with it totaling 14 tracks, a midway point between the two, there was no real way of telling how neat and well put together it would be before getting into it. But having gone through it a fair few times now, I think my overriding impression is exactly that it is a midway point between Codename X and Virus, possessing a stealthy number of very ambitious tracks, alongside a couple others that seem a bit more superfluous in its construction. Not as many as Virus, in other words, the hits having more of a presence across the album than the staff levelling them off per se. It kicks off with the seriously gripping introductory track Exterminate, a machine that bolts into action as soon as we are greeted by a robot spelling out Excision's name. Adopting more of a stop-start structure in the dubstep compared to the more full-blown industrial introductions of his from the past, yet it's still as terrorising. Great to see such a significant change be so impactful, it's properly prehistoric, a real statement maker that progresses well, and is just vintage Abel. The bangers continuing early doors with the fantastically standoffish one-on-one alongside Space Laces, simple and stripped back yet with a real mesmeric force to it. Supplying repeated hits of mind-melting acidic bass, it's relentless and blinding, holds you in its grasp from start to finish. In Wake Up, the first of 2 collaborations with METALSTEP Sullivan King, we have the first true example of melding more chilled sequences with the brutality that is to follow. King's voice posing as a stunning juxtaposition to the waves of manic, uncontainable dubstep that come our way, which at first I found much too incessant and glaring, but on my 3rd and 4th listens I warmed to more and more, and have continued to do so since. The "captivate me one more time" phrase from King being one that is sure to live on in dubstep memory for the foreseeable future, a lot of emotion wrought out whenever he utters those words. And following this absolute whirlwind opening, I'd say my favourite parts of Apex lie in individual moments within these tracks, rather than the songs as wholes. The low-end tears and scratches in the drops to the collaboration with Illenium entitled Gold are seizing and momentous, well fitted for this track even though it's so delicate at its core. I must also mention the vocal from Shallows here, heart-rending and sorrowful yet with such a desire to make things right, all of which comes across effortlessly in her delivery. In Where Are You, we have the track that harks back most to Excision's original style, unerringly mechanical, grungy dubstep that conjures up memories of hits like Swagger and Headbanger. You gotta rate that eerie vocal to start too. whereas in Power it's the introduction that has you hooked, telling a story through every cog and wheel that gets into gear. I must say I also really enjoy the way that the second drop in Tonight picks up the track with a bit more distinction between individual synths and that haunting main vocal. But my undoubted favourite following the initial blast of the opening 3 tracks arrives in the 10th track, Vault. A truly awesome cut that digs deep into the depths of Excision's discography to bring a selection of his finest hits together in one huge star-studded mashup. From Final Boss to Bring the Madness, Throwing Elbows to X Up, this brilliant regurgitation is one of those ideas that many would have thought of, but no one would be able to execute quite like Excision. Something he's probably always wanted to do, but had to wait for years before having enough hits behind him, and it's definitely well worth his patience on that front. A tune that I think you have to listen to just to understand how good an idea it is. The less said about it, the better, really. In saying that this is my favourite from the latter part of the album, I mean those that are hot off the press, with tracks 12 and 14, Hoods Up and Rumble, having been in the dubstep consciousness for a while now. Both undeniably tracks that I've found myself enjoying more and more with each listen, getting used to their memorable moments increasingly. The false alarm drops in Hoods Up I used to seriously dislike but now love. And the second drop in Rumble I appreciate much more within the context of the song, having listened to it so many times. Whether I think it works as the album's final track is another matter, however. It's a thrilling close, but I feel like something a little more reflective could have worked at this point in the project. Kinda like the way that Interstellar functions in the Codename X album, for example. Overall though, I think considering you can split Apex's 14 tracks into pretty definitive musical approaches, Abel has done well to spread them out over the course of the album. You have the straight up, neat, contained and emphatic dubstep belters like Hoods Up, Tonight, Fall, Where Are You and Power. You then have those that possess a little more flair like Vault, Exterminate, the Space Laces and Sullivan King collaborations. And then those that are a bit lighter and more chilled in their essence, looking for a bit more reach sonically, Gold, Home, Die For You. They're all distributed pretty evenly on the album, meaning that no one approach ever becomes too overwhelming. Moreover, each song, even though it may not be as good as the previous one, constitutes as a welcome change and direction for the project to go in, an awareness that I'm not sure Abel has had before to this level. Another aspect of Apex that I found to be particularly interesting was the very noticeable rock and roll, metal, guitar influence permeating the album. To my mind, with a strong enough presence in One on One, Gold, Fall, and of course the Sullivan King collaborations, making it a formidable motif throughout here. Which, more than anything, made me realise how integral guitar-led music has been to Excision's style, not just in the recent past, but from his beginnings as a producer. The trailblazer for artists such as Sullivan King, who have really pushed the boat in mixing dubstep and heavy metal over the last couple of years, it's only fitting that he should have a couple of features here. On that note, I do also really enjoy that there are several repeated features here, including Space Laces and Dion Timmer as well. Just a really nice sense of togetherness about that, if you catch my Tokyo drift. Fundamentally though, it is an Excision album, and on the basis of whether it sounds distinctively like him or not, I think you could interpret Apex either way. Because whilst it is a collection of songs littered with staple Excision sounds, there are also several instances of Abel venturing beyond his renowned full-throttle style and trying new things out. The bubblegum pop sequences in the track Home alongside Dion Timmer, as well as the drops here, are just so far removed from anything you would normally associate with Excision. The uplifting and empowering drops in Die For You, elevated by the strained vocal from A Killer, again just not what you would expect in an LP from the Canadian. Tracks that I can't say I'm warming to just yet, but that's just because this music isn't for me as much as the dubstep is. In that sense then, these tracks are actually very important for the album because they represent Excision opening up his music to more people. By going down these more emotional routes every now and then, he is providing new gateways of appreciation for his music, showing an awareness that I'm not sure many other top producers out there have. I would mention Gold alongside these two, but it strikes me as more of an overt mix of the lighter and heavier stuff, the most compelling blend of styles on the album. Even with the stark metal and rock influences, we have evidence of Excision allowing new musical methods into his production process. Particularly with Fight Through the Pain, a full-on medley of guitars and dubstep synths that is a little wild and aimless in its focal points, but the brilliance of the intro and midsection more than carry it through. But in saying all of this, and in spite of him incorporating all these styles, I still feel comfortable returning to the idea that it sounds like an Excision album. There is more than enough dubstep here to make it stand out as an Excision album. It's got a modern electronic music twist, but it's still easily identifiable as his. Through the years, he's evolved and adapted his sound and style to reflect the current state of dark electronic music at those specific times, and Apex is no different to those it succeeded. From Virus to now, he seems to have become more fixated on sound than ideas, but it still packs the same punch and leaves the same impression as before. Some of the vocals here are extremely catchy and sticky and will coexist alongside the most memorable that Abel has offered over the years. Not an album that I would say ranks alongside Codename X, my undoubted favourite of his and one of the best dubstep albums of all time in my opinion, but still an extremely solid project. It's a mark of how high a standard he set that I'm talking about these albums in terms of how amazing they are comparatively, as opposed to whether they're good or not in and of themselves. Moreover, I would say that Apex picks things up again following Virus, which had the difficult job of succeeding Codename X and didn't quite rival it. But Apex has instilled my huge faith in Excision once again as the chief dubstep creator. It's not an easy thing making an album by any stretch, and that's his fourth now, an incredible feat that further establishes him as the modern father of dubstep. He who took the reins from Skrillex to ensure that the genre kept thriving, arguably dubstep's most important figure, and as always, can't wait to see what he comes up with next. For one thing, I'm excited as hell to be going to Lost Lands in a few weeks to watch him play, one of my bucket list musicians, so yeah, absolutely cannot wait for that. Now, in terms of a favourite from Apex, there are parts of nearly every track that I really like, but I think I would have to go with Vault. I'm not even that keen on the dubstep in this tune, but the overall concept in bringing together so many of his biggest hits in true mashup style, it's just an ingenious idea. And in terms of recommendations, if you enjoyed this album, then I would look at the Destroid album from a few years back, the other Excision albums, and anything from Space Laces and Downlink generally. And so that is that for another review on the Nawtystep channel, this time of the new album from Excision, released on Rottun Recordings, Apex. Thank you very much, and as always, for tuning in. Be sure to leave a comment with your thoughts on Apex. What did you guys make of it? Do you have a favourite track from the 14? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, give it a big ol' thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the notification bell along the way. For some other album reviews on the channel, check the link next to my head somewhere. Don't forget to like and follow Nawtystep across social media if you haven't already, the links to which, including all of the recommendations, are in the description box down below. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure as always to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see all of you legends in the next one. Peace out.